Hello, welcome to Master Mathematics. My name is Mr. A, and in this video, you are going to learn how to divide decimals. So dividing decimals can be kind of tricky. There's 5 steps to it, but it can be kind of tricky because 4 of these steps do not involve actually doing any math. So in these steps to dividing decimals, the first 4 here don't include actually like doing any calculations or anything like that. So it's super important that you're very detailed when you do this, and it can be easy to make a mistake. So pay attention to these closely. If you need to, pause it, take a screenshot, make sure that you have this, all right? And in this one, I included a little graphic that I found online that explains the different parts of a long division problem because I'm going to be using some math terms in this video. So step number 1 is to rewrite the equation in long division form. So that's the example that you see here. This is in long division form. But again, most of the time an equation is not going to be wrapped up for you that nice. So this equation here, which is 620 divided by 8, might be given to you looking like this, 620 divided by 8. So you need to rewrite it in long division form. Step number 2, you are going to move the decimal in the divisor until the divisor is a whole number. So in this example, the divisor here is 8, right? This 8 here is the divisor. There's no decimal in it, so you don't have to move the decimal place at all. But let's say that you did. You'd have to essentially move the decimal point to the right until the number is a whole number. Step number 3 is now to move the decimal point the same number of steps in the same direction in the dividend. So the dividend is this number here. And this number here, the dividend, can be a decimal. All right, so when it's in long division form, it can be a decimal. You just have to move it however many times that it asks you to. And then step number 4 is to then insert the decimal point straight up into the quotient. So you would move it in this one, right? There is an invisible decimal point at the end of the number 620. You would move it just straight up and put it right there. And the reason being is that it really matters in terms of place value. So it is super important that you do that right away. So those are the 4 steps. Like I said, there's 4 steps before there's any calculation. And it's really, really important to be detailed with those 4 steps and to make sure you do those 4 steps before you divide to find your answer. And in an answer or in a quotient, right, because it's a division problem, there won't be a remainder, all right? You might be used to working with remainders, but when we move on to higher level of math, they're not remainders. Those then turn into decimals or fractions or something of the like to indicate that it's not a whole number. We don't just say that there's 4 left over or a remainder of 4. It might be something like 0.4 or 4/10, okay? So I have a couple of examples that I'm going to show you where we actually work it out. This, of course, this little example here in this graphic here was, again, just to show you the parts of a division problem. But let's move on to 2 examples where we're going to divide some decimals. All right, our first example, we have 2.5 or 2 5/10 divided by 0.5 or 5/10. So my first step is to write this in long division form. So in this equation, 0.5 or 5/10 is the divisor. So we write that on the outside. And we have our long division sign. And 2.5 is the dividend. So we put that on the inside. Now step 2, we have to move the decimal point. So we start by moving the decimal point in the divisor. So this way this 0.5 becomes 5. So I move it to the right 1 place. All right, and move it to the right there. So that was step 2. Step 3, I have to do the same thing to the dividend. I have to move the decimal point 1 place to the right. So I'm going to do that now. Move it 1 place to the right. And then that 2.5 becomes 25. And I'm going to rewrite it here just so this way you could see it. And we have 5 divided by 25. Now you might be saying, Mr. A, I already know the answer to this. I don't need to move the decimal point up because my answer is a whole number. No, we're going to do it anyway. And in fact, I'm going to add a decimal point, and a 0. So this way we don't get confused. because that's what you have to do. If your whole number, if you're moving the decimal point more places, you have to add some placeholder zeros there, so this way the equation works. And step 4 was to move the decimal point straight up into our answer, and that is exactly what I am going to do. I'm going to move that decimal point up right there. Now I'm going to divide, and yes, 25 divided by 5, we should all know, is 5. Do I need the decimal point there? No. I'm going to put the 0 in there just so this way we see it. So our quotient, or our answer, is 5.0, or just 5. All right, example number 2. We have 72, so a whole number, divided by 0.4, or 4 hundredths. All right, let's rewrite this in long division form. That is our first step. So we have 0.04, or 4 hundredths, is our divisor. We write our division sign, and 72 is the dividend. All right, step 2 is to move that decimal point. So in this case, we have to move it 2 spaces to the right. So what we do in our divisor, we have to do in our dividend. And you might be looking at that saying there's no decimal point in the dividend. Well, actually there is. There's a decimal point there. We just don't write it because it's unnecessary. It's still 72, but we do have to move it 2 spaces. So I move it 1, 2. And now this is what I was talking about on the previous example. I need to fill in zeros here, right? Because those blanks, I need to just fill in zeros. This way the equation and the math works. So again, I'm going to rewrite it. My 4 hundredths is now 4. And instead of 72, I have 7,200 as the dividend. All right, now, right, next step though, there's another step in here. I've got to add this decimal point, and I have to bring it up into the equation right now. I have to bring it up into the quotient, actually. So I'm going to bring that dividend, or that decimal point, up here, not in the dividend anymore. And just so this way I have some room, I'm going to erase this here. So we have our problem rewritten, so this way I have enough room to do the work. All right. Does 4 go into 7? Yes, it does. It goes in one time. That puts us with 4. We do our subtraction there. We have 3. And now we bring down the rest of the equation. So we bring down the 2 and the 0 and the other 0. And now we move on to the next step. So now does 4 go into 32? Yes, 4 goes into 32 8 times. And it goes in, that leaves us with exactly 32. So we do the subtraction there. And then even when we bring down the 2 zeros, 4 goes into 0, 0 times, and 0 times. Okay, and we don't have to do any work beyond that. We don't have to add any numbers to the right of the decimal point. In fact, at this point, if we wanted to, we can erase it. All right. I'm not going to this time, but you could if you wanted to. But I'm just going to leave it that there to show you. So that's it. You now know how to divide decimals. What I would suggest is to pause the video, go back to the point where it's just the 2 examples, and try the examples on your own. Work them out on your own. Also, while you're at it, once you pause that video, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel as well. My name is Mr. A. This channel is Master Mathematics. Thank you so much for being here, and until the next video, adios.